It's a new day on Deep Space Nine, and we're sitting around in Quarks. Kira joins them, having just attended a service at the Temple about forgiveness, and we have a little chat on the topic of Odo regretting he can't just take up religion so he could go with her. Right, that's enough setup, so let's move on to the plot. Kira's in her quarters later when she's visited by a Vedek. He's the first guest part of the episode, so let's drag out the wheel and slap a name on the lad. We'll be calling him Mr. Flibble, provided by Ensign Mr. OK. Mr. Flibble is a Vedek Kira's known for years, all the way back to when she was a child during the occupation. He's also come bearing a gift, a crystal of some sort, and it starts glowing when she holds it. That might have something to do with the distinctly Dominion-looking teleporter effect, and her suddenly finding herself on Empok Nor, the sister station of DS9. It's had a bit of a glow-up since the last couple of times we were here, but that's to be expected when it's now occupied. The place is home to some Bajorans with red earrings and armbands, identifying them as members of the cult of the Power Wraiths. As to why they wanted to bring Kira here, well, they didn't. Seagull Dukat did. He's the leader of this particular group of cultists, and he's helped them see the light about the prophets. The false prophets, that is, the ones who did nothing to stop the occupation, not like the Power Wraiths who got chucked out for wanting to do more than just stand back and watch. Those true prophets would never have allowed such suffering. He says he learned all this after becoming the vessel for a Power Wraith last season, and during subsequent visions from them, when he felt how much they cared for Bajor. All right, they murderized Jadzia, but that was to get back into the Celestial Temple so they could help Bajor. That's why he's building this community, to prepare for them having another go, and that's why he wants Kira here, to be with him when Bajor is reborn. Back on DS9, Kira's absence has been noticed. They've confirmed she wasn't on the single ship to have left after she was last seen, so O'Brien does a science and finds traces of teleporter bollocks. He also confirms it was Dominion and that there was a beacon involved, giving it a maximum range of 3 light years. Even if they could guarantee she hadn't been moved from the destination, searching such a large area simply isn't an option. Mr. Flibble has decided to visit Kira in her locked room, with inevitably poor results. It's not easy to see the Vedek who helped the faith of so many in her refugee camp turn to following the man responsible for those same camps existing. That's not true, he says. He hooked up with the Power Wraiths long before Seagull Dukat did, near the end of the occupation, in fact. Realizing the prophets didn't give a single shit about them explained so much. And the people he's found along the way are the opposite of how they've been portrayed, the very epitome of peace and love. I mean, okay, there was that one lad who shanked Cisco, but he did that all on his own. And sure, Seagull Dukat might have presided over the murders of millions, but the Power Wraiths absolved him. He said so himself. It's clear words aren't going to cut it, so Mr. Flibble takes her on a tour instead. There's a bit of tonal whiplash when he tells her the ships are guarded against her stealing one, then says he wants this to become her home, but I suppose there's a limit to how good a host you can be to kidnap victims. Some of the cult members are settling in nicely, based on one of them being heavily up the duff. It'll be the first birth on Empok Nor, Seagull Dukat having given his permission for her and her husband to do a bit of the old dirty little bastard. Abstinence is the norm, you see, that being the way things used to be back on ancient Bajor. Kira thinks that funny based on Seagull Dukat's own reputation for indulgence, one she personally confirmed by doing time fuckery to witness him with her own mum. Mr. Flibble doesn't care about Seagull Dukat's past. As far as he's concerned, whatever came before is just more proof of Seagull Dukat's rebirth. Our expectant mother's husband is the next introduction. He's an artist painting a piece to commemorate how great Seagull Dukat is, and he's not at all asked what Kira thinks of them. His belief is pure and needs no confirmation from her. He proves it in their temple later. As Seagull Dukat's leading a sermon, Kira grabs a weapon and tells everybody but him to get down. The artist instead shields Seagull Dukat with his body, and others follow his example. Either the weapon doesn't have a stun setting, or she doesn't think of it, so she instead tries to back out onto the promenade. Some other lads disagree with this idea and prove just how committed to peace and love their cult is by knocking her out. She wakes in Seagull Dukat's quarters to him tending her. Neither that nor rehashing old arguments convinces her he's any different, though she's now decided it's more important to unmask rather than kill him to free the people here. He tries some more convincing, none of it effective, until interrupted. Our expectant mother is giving birth. The celebration goes somewhat pear-shaped when the kid's born with cardigan features, but Seagull Dukat recovers admirably by claiming it's a sign from the Pares about their cult being as one, and definitely not because he knocked her up. Kara can't understand why Mr. Flibble's just swallowing such obvious horseshit, though, to be fair, that argument might carry more weight if Cisco wasn't conceived by a prophet possessing someone. Either way, Mr. Flibble's not convinced it's dodgy, but is willing to let Kira ask some questions. The new mum's husband doesn't look entirely delighted by events, but still tries to put on a brave front. It's demolished when Kira discovers Seagull Dukat made an effort to pray with him alone, and with his wife. Mr. Flibble pulls her away, but the doubt has now taken root. Kira wants to talk to the mum as well, but she's currently busy in an airlock. Seagull Dukat's asking her why she didn't tell him the baby was his. She didn't know, and nor does she know how long she can keep the truth from her husband. Perhaps Seagull Dukat expected this response, hence the meeting in an airlock. She manages to hang on when he tries to space her, and the sound of Kira calling for her forces him to scarp her before he can make sure. Kira finds her and gets her to the infirmary, where we're told she'll be fine when she wakes up. Seagull Dukat's attempts to spin this as an accident don't convince Kira, and she warns those around her not to leave the mum alone with him as she's dragged away. From the looks of things, Kira's not the only one who isn't convinced. And it looks like Seagull Dukat knows he's stuffed. He's praying for a way out from the Pares, and either they answered him or he thought of one for himself. That's why he's telling the rest of his followers that the Pares have decided it's time to meet them all. Of course, that's not possible while they're still alive, which is why they all need to die, him included. Kira's not expected to follow suit, which is jolly generous of him, and he says he's called DS9 to come pick her up. What she can't understand is why Seagull Dukat is willing to join the rest of them in death. The answer might be in the method, as he has some pills that not only turn you into a corpse, but also turn that corpse into dust so it can't be identified. He leaves her locked up and goes to host the Kool-Aid party. Kira's former resistance, though, so obviously she breaks out. She arrives at the temple as everybody's about to take their pills and jumps on Seagull Dukat, making him drop his. Mr. Flibble helps him up and hands him another pill, though Seagull Dukat is altogether less enthusiastic about the prospect of taking this one. Kira's the first to figure out why, the one he previously had being a fake, and asks why he's not willing to just nom on this one instead. Seagull Dukat tries to talk his way out of the situation, but it's one straw too many. The mum's husband is the first to throw his pill, along with some accusations, and the others follow suit. Even Seagull Dukat can see it's all gone to shit by this point, and after telling them they're undeserving of the Pares, he teleports away. All of which proves too much for Mr. Flibble, who sits down and decides that maybe taking his pill is the right choice after all. Kira's on the Defiant with Odo and flying home. She can't figure out if Mr. Flibble took the pill to prove his faith or as a comment on having lost it. It's a question to which she'll never have the answer, so we'll leave her to ponder the possibilities and worry about what Seagull Dukat might do next now he's found faith, until the next adventure. Faith has to come first for an orb experience. That's the argument from Kira when discussing the idea of Odo jump-starting his attitude to religion, and on the surface, the statement is demonstrably incorrect. Cisco and Dax both had visions without any sort of connection to the prophets or the Bajoran religion focusing on them. We can perhaps dismiss the former, given that Cisco is now canonically their special baby boo-boo, but that still leaves Dax, or evil Berial for that matter. One possible answer is that the faith she's talking about doesn't necessarily refer to the prophets themselves, but rather something more abstract. Let's call it faith in the same things a particular deity espouses, a fundamental capacity for good in this instance, a belief that the majority of sentient beings will try to be selfless when their basic needs are met. That would explain why someone like Kai Sin, the Delphic douchebag, has never had an orb vision. Her belief extends to what she can receive in exchange, and such selfishness is inherently at odds with the principles of altruism. And that thinking might also explain our main plot point today, the idea that Siegel Dukat now has a direct line to the Par-Wraiths, or at least believes he does. And it is an actual belief, not just something he's throwing out for effect, like Kai Sin does. His time spent carrying a Par-Wraith has left him calling himself their emissary and backing it up with prayer to them. There was no audience during this, no observers to witness his performance. I struggle to believe Kai Sin would do the same without the expectation of it placed upon her. Ironically, you could argue this makes Siegel Dukat more devout than the religious leader of Bajor. And why not? Why wouldn't Siegel Dukat throw his full weight behind the Par-Wraiths? This is exactly what he's always wanted. His explanation of the prophets allowing Bajor to suffer plugs straight into his belief that all the bad shit was never truly him. Previously, he said it was either the orders he was given or a necessary response to the ungrateful Bajorans. Now he can blame Bajor's own gods, that they laid this path for him. It's perfect. Not only are the Bajorans responsible for what happened to them, but he now also gets to believe that he's even more of a victim than any of them ever were. In fact, this whole thing is a double win. Not only were the atrocities ordained by others, his sins absolved by literal gods, but now he gets to put Bajor on the true path. That plugs into another of his desires, to be seen as the wise educator and to be loved for his lessons, harsh as they may be. Through his adoption of worshipping the Par-Wraiths, he explains away the entire occupation and finally attains the position of adored leader. It's everything he's always wanted, and it's being given to him by a great power of the universe itself, the same universe that robbed him of his biggest fan when Zial was killed. This proves he's their chosen, just as he's always known he deserved to be, and all that came before was simply a test of his resolve. It's a narcissist's dream come true. And such an attitude might also explain a surprising part of his prayer. When he's talking to the Par-Wraiths, or believes he is, he says he prays the woman he just tried to kill wakes up. On the surface of it, that sounds absurd. He wanted her silent to protect himself after all. Why would he now desire her recovery? But this point does also tie into his newfound faith. He's merely a mortal instrument of the Par-Wraiths, trying to understand things beyond the ken of corporeal beings. By acknowledging there's something greater than himself, he's allowed to be flawed. It's not a weakness anymore, it's an inevitability. Of course he's not as good as gods. How could he be? His very imperfection reinforces his faith. So, doing the dirty with one of his followers, which may or may not have been entirely consensual, by the way, based on her saying she forgave him, isn't a deal-breaker. It just shows he's mortal. And trying to solve that problem by punting her out of an airlock isn't a deal-breaker either. It just shows he's mortal. Mistakes are no longer a judgment of him. They're either a misunderstanding of what some omnipotent and omniscient beings were asking of him, or the ghosts of his old life haunting him to keep him true to his new faith. While we're on the topic of that prayer, it leaves us with a question of what actually happened. We start with him saying he wants her to wake up, and just a moment later, he's now of the opinion that the solution is to go full Jonestown. He said that he'd spoken to the Par-Wraiths during his prayer, and this was their will. Normally, we'd just dismiss that as Siegel Dukat being what he is, a megalomaniacal egotist who'd not even blink at the idea of offing 50 people to save his own arse. That was before, though. Now we know he's been in direct contact with at least one Par-Wraith, and the possibility exists that he really did receive instructions from them. Siegel Dukat has a proven track record for getting shit done after managing to deliver a Par-Wraith into the wormhole. As far as they're concerned, one psychopath who's willing to do whatever it takes to feel special may well be a far more useful tool than 50 misguided but ultimately benign cultists. At the end of the day, I don't suppose it makes much difference. Even if they didn't speak to him, he likely believes they did, and belief is all that really matters here. Which leads us rather neatly into another little observation from today's episode, namely the cognitive dissonance that often accompanies a complete lack of doubt. When Kira's first brought to the temple on Empok Nor, she has a conversation with Seagull Dukat on the nature of faith. When Kira says the plan of the prophets isn't always clear, Seagull Dukat balks at the words and calls them obviously hollow. It's only 3 minutes and 40 seconds later when Seagull Dukat himself says the Pa-Rays have a plan and will reveal it to him when the time is right. 3 minutes and 40 seconds between calling something obvious bullshit and engaging in exactly the same thinking. In my opinion, one of the most fascinating aspects of extremist ideology is how it can make you blind to the very allegations you level at others. We'll end the analysis of this one with a possibly unintentional callback. Several years ago in the Season 2 finale, we brought the first example of what we'd later learn with the Vorta back to DS9. She escaped by means of a teleporter, though one that left a number of questions as we didn't think there were any ships in range. Well, we now have an answer, albeit one that took 4 seasons to turn up. Being told the Dominion's teleporter tech has a 3 light-year range if augmented with a beacon gives us plenty of headcanon opportunities. Indeed, she might not even have stayed in the Alpha Quadrant despite a lack of Dominion ships. We don't really know when those Founder infiltrations began, and there were no shortage of explorers going through from our side, not all of which came back. Before we go, we have a bit of housekeeping to do. The Patreon poll for which series we'll be moving to next is now closed, and our chosen target is Enterprise. Congratulations and/or condolences to all involved in the vote. For those of you who keep wondering if Babylon 5 or Stargate SG-1 are on the cards, the current plan is to clear up all the old Trek first. After that, though, the likelihood of us casting our net a little wider increases significantly, so it might not be a bad idea to think about what else you'd like to see on the list. End of episode.
That's social media out the picture then. What a bloody shambles.
We could always try some more. Maybe see if they're all like this.
Nah, there's no point. He'll not write anything funnier than that last one.
So where does that leave us?
On a bus with no destination.
Not necessarily. Think about it. The only reason we were going to social media in the first place is because the artist formerly known as Dancing Baby pointed us there.
Aye, and he's the closest thing we found to an expert here.
Perhaps, but he wasn't exactly the most stable person we've ever met.
Yeah, that's a fair judgment, and social media's all he knew.
Exactly. We're on a search engine that can take us to anything we ask, but we've only used it for what he suggested. What we need is another idea.
Alright, lad, you've convinced me. What's your idea then?
I haven't actually got that far yet. Give me the weekend to think about it.
Okay, but if you've not thought of anything by then, we're going back to Fair Affinity while you work on it. Oh.